Hi, welcome to Practical Wisdom Stories. My name is Nikki Kloeppel, and we have a live studio show today. I'm so excited to have my 16-year-old son, Andrew, join us today.
Hello.
The reason I thought to invite him in, first of all, so many of my clients have been talking about how stressed they are as parents and the impact that quarantine and the pandemic and virtual school is having on their kids and teenagers. So I thought that we could hear from somebody firsthand, their perspective of what it's like and how parents are doing during this time. So what reassurance would you give to parents of getting through pandemic?
I would say that I'm not sure if this applies to all kids, but for me personally, online school has been much less stressful than regular school. I found it was harder to get up early in the morning. I think I got a lot less sleep during real school. It was nice to see your friends more often, but I think if you have a close group of friends that you can still hang out with, it's honestly not as bad as it can seem like it is sometimes.
Okay.
And I think overall, I think it's been a not good, but not as I think made the best out of the situation.
And how your mom and dad done with helping you through virtual school?
You guys have done great. Thanks to you guys, I'm getting pretty good grades. Yeah, you guys have been very helpful.
Great, thank you. And also, I will say that, as he's 16, I realize it's different with little kids that need lots of hand holding. One thing that has been really exciting, Andrew actually got inducted into the National Honor Society during this time. So that was, I think, a good reassurance, too, that he's still getting A's. And so congratulations there.
Thank you.
The other thing is the theme of this is around soul searching and some of the life lessons that can come from a difficult time of our lives. Certainly the pandemic is one thing. And something was really interesting for Andrew, even before COVID and quarantine that happened. So tell us about what you went through.
On December 30th, I was playing basketball with some of my friends from middle school. We were doing a little CYO practice in the gym, and I was dribbling the ball down the court, and somehow I broke my hip. It was super painful. We didn't know that it was broken at first, and right after that, there was a ski trip planned. It kind of messed it up, but in the end, there's a lot of valuable lessons that I learned from breaking my hip, and I think it's easy to see something like that as just a negative, but it's also important to see all of the things that you gain from that. I think a really easy analogy to think of is like, although you do lose some of your leg strength, you make it up in arm strength from being on crutches, and that's kind of like how, because I lost some being able to hang out with friends, and it was kind of harder to do some of the things that I usually did. I was also able to gain some very meaningful experiences. One of them was going to the hospital and seeing all the kids there and realizing, yes, this sucks. I can't walk for 3 months, which seems like a long time, but there's kids there that are just so much worse, and it's really important to kind of see your bad things in a light and understand that there's people that are suffering and you have to have compassion for those people. And overall, breaking my hip has really taught me that lesson.
Oh, what a wise guy. One other thing that happened, you can imagine I'm a coach, so I did this with my son too. Actually, both of my kids, there was a scholarship opportunity from their preschool. And so I paid them both $20. I was like, hey, it's $20 for an hour to write this essay. Andrew's a junior in high school, so I thought, it definitely would help with college. So what happened with the scholarship essay?
Well, at first, when you told me to write that, I'll admit I wasn't too stoked because obviously I'd rather be doing other things, but I agreed to sit down and I knocked it out during the time, and it was kind of nice writing.
Did that $20 incentive make the difference?
Yes,
All right, so bribe your kids if you have to, okay? If you need to teach those lessons.
I probably wouldn't have written the essay, to be honest. And basically, when I wrote it, I talked about kind of what I was telling you guys about how breaking my hip was actually a blessing in disguise because of all the valuable things I learned from that. And after it, I kind of forgot about it for a while, but after probably 6 months or so, we got a letter in the mail, and we learned that I had won first place and won $1,000. I was absolutely elated. I was super stoked. I celebrated with my family, and it was one of the best experiences that I've had this year.
Yeah. So even in that, the lesson for me as a parent was sometimes we want our kids to do something and make it worth their while we're teaching those lessons. And so thank you for doing that. And I just also think from like a point of, I think it's interesting. I talked to some other parents, our family friends who had kids go to that same preschool, and they said, "Oh yeah, I saw that, but we just didn't get around to it, or figured we'd never win that." And so I think the other thing too is get lucky. You never know what's going to happen. You can't win anything if you don't try. So I think that was a life motto that I believe in, and so I think it was awesome to share that with him and have him be able to experience firsthand that sometimes you do win and sometimes you do get lucky and good things can happen, and also to be able to take that silver lining out of that. I guess maybe one other point is if you were to say like practical wisdom, I know you're just 16, but what is a life philosophy or advice that you would recommend for other teenagers?
Mine would definitely be to get involved. Don't just sit around doing nothing. I mean, it doesn't have to be being student leadership or whatever your parents tell you to do, but definitely get out there, try out for a sport. Like, for example, I had never played tennis before, freshman year, and a couple of my friends talked, and we were like, yeah, we should practice for a month or two because the tennis team's pretty easy to make. And we practiced, and we ended up all making it, and it was overall a great experience. Now tennis is probably my favorite sport. I have gotten so much better over just 2 years, and overall just get out there and try your best.
Awesome. Thank you. And one other piece is just realizing that life experiences that we have build and prepare us for the next, and watching you miss out so much, January and February with your broken pelvis, that whole bit, you'd already had that experience kind of being quarantined. You didn't get to go skiing, you didn't get to you weren't going to be able to play on the tennis team, and then then quarantine and COVID hit. And yeah, I remember you said at one point, well, I feel like I've already been in quarantine for 2 months anyway. And so that really helped prepare you for that next step. So I guess, one of the points too is while we're going through things in the middle of it, a lot of times it feels awful. And then when we just zoom out a little bit and are able to reframe things like you have of showing the benefits that we get. I know one other thing, you took the Dale Carnegie course with the best trainer ever, right? What was the number one thing that you got from that experience?
Oh, there are so many things that I got from that experience, but probably the number one is just to be confident, because even if you kind of don't even really know what you're talking about, just confidence can have such a great effect on what you're saying and how you're saying it. It can really help you when you're trying to convince people something or just have a good conversation with someone. Just confidence is key.
Yeah. You applied that, especially running the interview. I saw that you volunteered at school to run a couple of interviews with people. So what was that experience of being a talk show host or as your own?
It was awesome. The two interviews I've done so far were both with freshmen, and that was nice because I feel like this year, because of COVID and because of online school, I haven't had an opportunity to reach out to a lot of kids that I haven't met before, which is something you kind of take for granted, just seeing kids you haven't seen before and making new relationships. So it was really great to be able to talk to some new kids, and I can imagine being a freshman this year would suck, because especially if you go to a school that you don't really know anyone from, it must be really hard to meet people. So I thought it was a great experience because I was able to make new relationships with kids.
Yeah. And boy, that's so applicable. I know so many people are getting new jobs during this time, and it's kind of like being that freshman and starting a new job and meeting coworkers and managers virtually. And so thank you for showing, that we can still connect virtually as well. Thank you so much for letting me talk you into doing this. And to everybody out there, hang in there. You got this.